So I grew up in a lot of pain and a lot of discomfort, just because my skin was constantly cracked, broken, oozing different liquids. I don't want to get gross on here, but this is a reality that I had to live with. So how can I separate my skin condition away from who I actually am? I am a human being who can definitely do good in this world, although it took another 12 years beyond that before I really started realizing what I can do.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Cosmic Chaps. Chaps, he is a chap, but we're not wearing chaps today. Cosmic Chats with Alex Hooper, who is an absolute delight. You are going to be blown away by this chat. However, also a comedian and podcaster. He's going to get a little serious, talking about growing up with eczema as a child that really had him feeling like an outcast and learning at a young age in his early 20s of what really is a healthy relationship where there is true give and take, uplifting one another, and learning how to be vulnerable and expressing love. So how would you describe the taste of a banana to someone who's never had one?
Well, as someone who eats a banana every single morning, I share it with my two pugs, and they will incessantly annoy me until I wake up and they get their banana. I would say a banana is like a actual piece of sunshine. It's got that you insert into your mouth. The sun has vitamin D, as does a banana. It's got a little bit of a chalky texture that feels good against your skin. However, as soon as it goes inside, you get that dose of sweetness that energizes you for the rest of the day. So if I could take sunshine, wrap it in a peel, and then feed it to my pugs every morning, well, I think that's a wonderful start to a day.
Well, if there was ever a banana surplus that needed to be consumed, you are going to be the poster child, because that was phenomenal.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, any way a banana can go inside me, and that may be a euphemism, maybe it's not, who knows? We'll take the bananas any way we can get them.
All righty. Well, I think that links quite nicely to me asking you, when did you have your first existential life crisis as a child?
So I would say I was born into an existential crisis. I am riddled with a horrible case of eczema, which is an autoimmune disease. For those that are not familiar, it mainly affects the skin. I have a case that is only held by about 1,000 people on the entire planet, where it is consistent, persistent, and relentless. It does not go away. So I grew up in a lot of pain and a lot of discomfort, just because my skin was constantly cracked, broken, oozing different liquids. I don't want to get gross on here, but this is a reality that I had to live with. So early on, I think I did not grow up with any religion, and I did not believe that God existed. However, I was surrounded by constant love and support by my family and friends and people. Nobody could understand what I was going through, but I think they did their best to. And at a certain point, probably around 10 years old, I realized that this is unfortunately my reality that I have to live with. Maybe I've had other iterations in my past selves that have not gone, did not have this, but whatever I am in this specific lifetime is going to have to deal with this for a while. And I think, I don't know if I could have, if I necessarily had if I knew it was an existential crisis then. I think I realized that I don't know what I am as a human without this. So how can I separate my skin condition away from who I actually am as a person? So not exactly existential crisis, but more so just dropping the knowledge on me that I am not my own. I am not my physical appearance. I am not my disease. I am not anything like that. I am a human being who can definitely do good in this world, although it took another 12 years beyond that before I really started realizing what I can do.
So it was around 10 years old that you surrendered to it.
I mean, I'd like to think that it was. I definitely had some really hard years after that too, because it just was, I mean, it was just so damaging in so many ways, not just physically, but also psychologically, emotionally, mentally. It was hard for me to believe that there could be so much good in the world, that there could be a higher power, because all I could think is, well, if there's a God, why would he create this? Why would he inflict this onto me from birth, when like I didn't even have a chance to prove who I was supposed to be? And I didn't really understand. I think that was the first time I realized that it was there and I would have to truly just deal with it for the rest of my life, which in its own way was some sort of revelation, epiphany. It just took a long time for me to realize that this is my Achilles heel. This is my truth. This is what I have to live with. And everybody has something that will burden them, that they will have to break through to get to the other side and find their own version of joy.
So for those who don't know, eczema on the smaller end of the scale, we'll say, is simply an irritation that can seem in the skin where it becomes red and irritable, correct? And usually people are given something like cortisone or ointments and it sort of heals itself up, right?
Yes, typically it's only found in like one or two areas on a person's body, like the back of your knees, your elbows, things like that.
Mm-hmm. And you had a far more acute, did you have it as a baby?
Yeah, I had it when I was 3 days old. I started developing rashes that were considered eczema, and it just kept getting worse. And to the point when the worst part is, doctors always told me that, hey, a lot of kids get this. It's very rare that it lasts into adulthood. It's going to go away. It's going to go away. And I think when I was about 16, I asked my doctor, I was like, so this is going away soon, right? And the doctor was like, no. And I felt like I had been lied to my entire life. I had this whole adulthood to look forward to where my skin would be fresh and it wouldn't feel like it was constantly burning. And it was all of these things. And then I just had to realize, like, yeah, so I have it full body pretty much everywhere. At this point, I'm on very hardcore medications for it. Like I inject myself in my stomach once every 2 weeks with a medicine called Dupixent. And it is better. It's manageable, much more so than when I was a child, but it is very obvious that I still have it and very apparent and still causes me just discomfort in a general way. I try not to focus on it, but I don't want that to be the thing that I'm known for by any means. Like there's a lot of other fun, cool things that I do. I don't need a skin condition to be the thing. Oh yeah, that's Alex Hooper's thing.
So as you were going through it and the doctors were saying, oh, you're going to grow out of it, did it actually make you feel worse about yourself because you were clearly not growing out of it and they weren't listening to you?
Oh yeah. I mean, when you're a teenager, you don't think anyone understands you anyway. We're all in this like, you'll never get me, mom. No one understands what I'm going through. I'm in the worst pain of my entire life, all that stuff. And so I did feel like it was really this whole situation of I couldn't understand why I had to deal with this when other people didn't. And so I'm looking, there was nothing I was more jealous of than a person with clear skin who just had no blemishes. I don't care if they could have been made of stone. They could have been 2 feet tall. They could have had no legs. They could have been missing an eye. If you had clear skin, I was so envious of you. And yeah, so it was just it was so hard for me to have any sort of happiness in the first like 21, 22 years of my life because I just couldn't I couldn't separate myself completely from the disease. Like I knew it was something I had to do, but I still hadn't figured out a way to get myself there emotionally.
So what happened around 21 that caused you to have this, pretty much this awakening of this is who I am and I'm going to be more of a spiritual person as a result?
So I got out of a really bad relationship with a friend that was very, very toxic to me, and for a long time. I'd been doing whatever she wanted to do, not really thinking about myself. And when I separated from her, suddenly, major life events started happening. I was like cast in a TV show out of nowhere, and then I moved to California, and I found an amazing relationship. Really started doing comedy at about 23 years old, and suddenly, when the rest of my life had just been floundering and I didn't know what to do, which caused my eczema to be even worse because stress and anxiety will add to whatever conditions your autoimmune disease is going through. Suddenly I had purpose and I had direction, I had passion, and it took away from the pain that my skin was causing me. And all of these things just started adding up at the same time. Finding music festivals, seeing people, how creative and expressive and free they were, not feeling judged in any way, which was the first time I'd ever felt like that. Nobody, like when you look different as a child, people call it out because you don't know any better.
Absolutely. And that stays in the nervous system. Any trauma that happens as a child is imprinted sort of like at the beginning. Right?
Yeah.
So even though there may be a mental correction down the line, maybe, oh, that's their problem. They're clearly, not quite right. Why would they be saying things to me? Even if their head knows it, the nervous system has taken on that response, and internally there's a visceral reaction to that, right? Because it's so deep. And that's why, even though there can be years of working on oneself, the awareness is one thing, but that having that deep fight or flight response is buried so deep into the consciousness, initially to protect the physiology and the species, pretty much. But then it becomes a detriment. Now, what I do want to address, which I think is really important that you talked about, is the impact of stress. When there is stress with whatever, and if it's okay to use the word, we'll say weakness, right? Some people everyone has something different. Everyone has something. Even if you're out there watching and you think you don't have something, you got something.
You got something. I'll dig it out of you. If you don't know what it is, give me an hour with you. I'll find it. I will rock your world down to its very core of your existence.
And stress, whatever, it's going to bring it up, right? You have this so-called life crisis shift at 21, right? And one of the great parts of the meditation that we're trying to get to underrepresented groups, excuse me, you made me laugh so hard from coughing, is that it helps get that nervous system from fight or flight to the relaxation state, also known from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic, very quickly. And those of you who are just joining in, just watching because our guest is so fabulous, who don't know, the meditation can mean anything nowadays. It's like the doctor saying, just exercise and come back. Well, what are you doing? Are you walking around the block with a frappuccino, or are you running a marathon? It's completely different. And people have so many ideas of what meditation is, which is actually why people stop doing it, because they think they're supposed to be doing something else. But ultimately, we endeavor to teach large groups how to get that stress, how to get that system not needing to respond up here all the time. And what happens is, if something is brought down with the adrenals coming down, guess what? It doesn't feel normal. And so the habit all those years is to recreate it so that the system feels normal. And if there's nothing that's regularly getting the system from fight or flight to the relaxation, there can be no imprint into the consciousness that it's okay to let go for 20 minutes, maybe twice a day. And over time, it starts to change the consciousness, and the body can release stress that it's holding on to that we don't need to. And if you're curious about what we're trying to do with Aware Meditation, there is a free ebook, that if you have Amazon Prime right now, you can get it free. And it's the only publication with true stories of people who learned the practice. It's about a page each, and how it changed their lives. Your jaw will drop to the floor. You know, people who committed suicide from someone who learned since they were 6 years old. And all of the stories are in their own words. So nothing is edited for you to feel the truth of it. And you can find that link there and find out more about it. And while you're at it, if you want to help support the nonprofit, you can like and subscribe, pretty please, with a cherry on top. Or if you want to get involved, just check out the stuff in the description. So stress is paramount in being the trigger to either complete implosion or spiritual awakening. And
very much so.
You also hit on an excellent point, which I feel moved today to talk about, which is getting out of a toxic relationship. And it sounds to me, and that there is a broad spectrum of it, and I am not a counselor or therapist in regards to any of this. When there is a relationship that is not reciprocated, even a friendship, where, you know, there can be periods where someone is not reciprocating back, but you've known them long enough, they're going through stuff, that even if that is not continued, reciprocating back in some form of another, it actually drains not only the physiology, but one's light inside. And so no matter whether it was broadly toxic, whether it's physical abuse or emotional abuse that happens, or relying on a relationship monetarily, 9 times out of 10, and I'm just talking out of my right now, when people get out of those, you are an excellent example today of how life just opens up because the toxicity has been removed. And I think what had happened on a spiritual level was, and I hate to say it this way, but I'm going to, you had learned that lesson. And
I think that's fair.
That's why those things opened up, because toxic relationship, the inner lesson has not been learned. Now, from a big philosophical point of view, if we want to talk about this lifetime as you have, there can be many, many lifetimes before which are being sorted out. So, oh, here's this person again. That was way toxic last lifetime. Now it's less toxic. Goodbye to that one. So what can sometimes seem like an ever-repeating pattern can also be someone just burning through it. I need to restate. I need to say my worth. But here it seems that it just popped, right? That was released, and then in came what was waiting. So we never know what is really there on the periphery at any moment.
Yeah, well, if you need to let things go to open up space for new things to come in. And I was holding on so tightly to this person and this belief of what our relationship was, even though that was completely inaccurate to the reality that I was actually going through and living on a daily basis. And once I let that go, stopped thinking for someone else, started completely thinking, well, what do I want? What am I supposed to be? How am I supposed to go through this existence? That's when all these little things started happening, and this confluence of all these amazing things came into my life, which then just exploded inside of me to find joy and positivity and optimism, creativity, spirituality, all of these things. I mean, because I grew up really against the idea of religion, God, and all of that stuff, even spirituality took me a very long time to land at, because I equated them to be exactly the same, and they're not. You know, spirituality just, I told me, it doesn't need to be about necessarily what is a higher power, what do I believe in. It just needs to be a grounding of myself and mindfulness and whatever works for you personally. Like, this is what I found works for me. I do meditate. I do, I write every day. I do lots of things to feed my soul, my brain, my body. That doesn't mean necessarily that they're going to be the right ones for you, but you have to at least try to figure out your tools.
I want to hit on something it's two-part. So it was about the statement you made of a belief of a relationship. So one part was the belief that the relationship was something that it wasn't. And what was that?
It was one side. I thought this was the person that I was supposed to be with. This wasn't just a friend. This was someone that I had so much love for. And in my mind, I saw us being together and spending our lives together. And I think she did as well, but in a completely different facet and than what I was thinking, like, oh, we're going to have a lovely relationship and we're going to have children and start a family. And I think she was just thinking like, no, we're just going to support each other as friends until I find someone else that makes me feel as good as you do, that I can wrap my finger around and turn into my little puppet. I mean, that's
right.
That's
so you were very much
of it.
Yeah, you were very much head over heels for the person and had a vision for it, and they didn't have the same vision. Let me ask you this next question. Was there a point that it had already been clarified or spoken to you that they were on a different viewpoint of the relationship, yet you still kept going?
So many times. I mean, this is part of being like 19 years old and not knowing what you really want out of your life. Like, the thing is, I was constantly hurt by this person. And because of that, she was hurting me back and I was hurting other people. The train of just pain just kept rolling right along and just knocking itself.
People, right?
100%. And so, there were so many times when I knew it wasn't right, but my brain was like, but it has to be right. So you start making all these adjustments in your head and you start just like giving all these reasons of, well, okay, maybe she isn't perfect in this way. Maybe this isn't good, but we have this other stuff. Right. And then you just keep just telling yourself the same story again and again until one day you realize you're just lying to yourself and you're not being honest with what is actually in front of you. I was in constant pain from this person just as much as I was from my skin, only I couldn't just put a cream on her and hope that it went away. It wasn't going away. The only way I could do it.
That would sell very well.
I think, oh my gosh, if we could make a cream that just made people the way we wanted them to be.
Well, what we would discover is we'd get that and we'd realize we were delusional. Actually, that doesn't fix us or isn't what we wanted. But let me go back to, so within you, as it is with everyone, and agreed, you were young. Okay, we want to make this very clear that it feels like there was a belief of what a relationship was supposed to be. Not necessarily this person, right, before that. And that belief was propelling you to stay in a relationship that was what it was. What was that belief that you thought? Was it because your parents were, together and happy and you thought that would be what happens? I don't know.
No, could not be further from that. I've had a lot of really close friends in my life. This was the first time I had ever been very, very close with a girl. So like there was not, and everything we did very much felt like a relationship. We slept over at each other's houses all the time. We ate all our meals together. People always said like if one of us was there, the other one would be there. So everything we were doing felt like a relationship, and she was very good about stringing me along just far enough to make me feel like there was an opportunity to turn this into something. And I didn't know, this was like the first person that ever paid this much attention to me. So I just assumed, well, this is the person then. right? It's that whole thing of like, like meeting someone and you don't have any other basis for what a relationship is supposed to be. So your first experience becomes, well, this must be it. Maybe I'm supposed to be unhappy and angry and stressed out all the time. And if I do, and constantly apologizing for my own behavior because it influenced this person in a negative way, that's all of that was normal to me. But that's not normal.
Right. And then understanding, and this is, I hate to say, want to give you a free pass, as it were, because now we are in more of an enlightened space where people are talking about it's two wholes coming together for something that is copacetic, ideally in purpose, right, for longevity. But back, maybe perhaps it was not talked about that. There was, and it's still there in some, movies and things, or you're my other half, or, where is the soul mate? In reality, we have, if you've lived many lifetimes, you've got a lot of them. And they also have different purposes in life. But the coming together of what is considered healthy is they are who they are, you are who you are. And coming together is by choice, not out of, what's the word I'm trying to find? I can't find the word. For some reason, it's eluding me. Out of duty or in order to try to make it work. Did you find when you started to interact with this new relationship, you were doing a few sabotage things at first?
Oh, completely. And mainly against myself, because when suddenly someone is treating you the way that you want to be treated, I didn't feel like I was worthy of that. I didn't deserve this level of love that this other person was bestowing upon me. And all I could think was like, well, maybe they're wrong. Why would they see this thing in me that nobody else has ever seen? What an idiot they must be.
This is excellent. I love that you put this. So did you find that you tried to push them away?
Oh yeah. Look, here's a perfect example. I'm getting married in April. Okay. Thank you very much. This person and I have been together in some form or another for about 15 years, right? Now, when you tell people, oh, you're engaged, they expect you to, oh, how long have you been together? 4 years, 6 years, but if on the long end, like 8 or 9, no, we've been closer to like 17. And I'm just getting over it took me until about 2 years ago to get over the block that I don't want to get married. I don't want to spend my life with one person. I don't want any of this because I didn't feel like I had enough to give. I didn't feel like I could reciprocate, or that it was easier to be alone because then everything is about me and I don't have to worry about hurting anyone else. Well, that's no way to live your life. That is just not. You have to let people in and you have to allow others to help create what you are supposed to be. People are supposed to support you and lift you up in a good relationship. And that's what this person, my fiance, has done for me. She saw something in me when nobody else did, and was able to, through a lot of hard work, just keep churning that machine until it spit out the good parts of me that I didn't even realize were in there. I thought I was a broken person. My skin was broken, my brain is broken, everything about me, there's nothing good happening here. And she saw something else, and slowly, thanks to her help, I started chipping away at everything. There's a beautiful quote when Michelangelo was asked how he carved the statue of David. And he said, it was already there. I just had to chip away all the parts that didn't show it. And that's what we need to do to ourselves as humans. We need to find who we are inside of this block of marble and get rid of all the parts that don't service us in any way. And I was holding on to so many beliefs, Paula, that from my childhood, you can't think that something you learned or felt about yourself when you were 9 is going to be the same when you're 25, 30 years old. You just can't. You have to do these inner checks with yourself and go, whoa, is this actually my current belief? Or am I holding on to something that I picked up when I was an infant that I never dealt with? Again, I'm going to say one more quote. One of my absolute favorites. With this quote changed my life. Alan Watts, amazing philosopher, said, "You have no obligation to be the person you were 5 minutes ago." And when I heard that, my head exploded. And I realized
that's the word I was looking for. You were in that relationship out of obligation. And much of that is the belief of, oh, I'm 19. This is what's supposed to happen, or what's wrong with me if it won't happen. And then getting so burnt. Opening up to love, let's say unconditional love, that's the mother divine element, right? The feminine divine is, and that can be in all beings, right? We have both elements, the masculine and feminine, and everything in between within us. But usually within a relationship, one person, even friendship, has more of that quality than the other. It moves around. The unconditional, to open up from being hurt before, requires vulnerability. And vulnerability, usually the divine masculine has a harder time doing that. The divine feminine has to keep stating their worth.
Yeah.
You can do that if you'd like to, but I prefer not to be around you if you choose to continue in that behavior. There's no controlling. It's if you choose to continue, this might not continue, right? Two people coming together. How did you allow yourself to start that vulnerability process?
I think stand-up comedy was a huge part of it. Especially when you're in the beginning, you are putting yourself out there in basically the most naked and vulnerable way possible. You're walking onto a stage in front of people with nothing except your own words and your own thoughts that you would like to express to these people, and they're either going to be with you or they're not going to be with you. And when you are putting yourself out there into that degree where you are, you're bearing your soul in a lot of ways to these people, it opens you up in a lot of different ways. And what I started when I was writing a whole lot, not just jokes, but just whatever, I was just like a journaling and all that. What I realized is I know what depression feels like. I know what extreme loathing of yourself and the universe feels like. Well, what don't I know? I don't know what outwardly expressing love feels like. I don't know what it feels like to just be positive and happy and show that side of myself to the world. I don't know what it's like to believe that I am supposed to be here and I can do amazing things if I just put my head down and move forward with blind faith that the universe will lift me up. So now all of these things come together. I start actually taking really good care of myself physically, mentally, all of these things, reading, meditation, slacklining, hiking, writing, reading, all of these things. And now to get to the other side, I've lived both extremes because people know me as this happy beam of light, just dropping sprinkles of joy everywhere I go. Most people will never know when I was, attempting to kill myself and essentially, without actually being violent towards others, destroy the entire world because I didn't feel like I was being accepted. If I have to live this life, everyone else gets to be miserable.
Right,
well, now,
exactly. You have to suffer because I am suffering. That is translated nowadays to if someone rises up out of a community or a situation, pulling the ladder up because you have to go through. And yes, but quite often going through that dark period, if we call it a dark period, or that not so uplifting positive element, is what brings us to the other side of it, right? And what's it, only those who have spirituality have gone to hell and come back, right? Have risen up for it. And so with that, we want to definitely express our love to Alex for being here. and such a beautiful cosmic chat. If you want to have him back, we should definitely do it. Please pop it in the chat. Please subscribe, support the nonprofit. All his info is in the description. As it is also, there are many areas where you can learn self-expression through taking a comedy workshop. Absolutely. Learn how to share your voice. I completely believe it should be in every high school as an option to learn to sort of dig in and start to express yourself in a way that the other arts don't exactly let you do. So with that, thank you so much for joining us. Much love to you all who are watching and to Alex, and we'll see you all on the next Cosmic Chat.